right, what is going on, ladies and lads? Welcome to episode 198 of the Morning Skate. I'm Jenkins, the Canadian Blackhawks guy, alongside Disco, our resident Capitals expert, and we are here today to chat with a very special guest who Disco and I are both huge fans of. It is our absolute pleasure to welcome to the Morning Skate a member of the Pat McAfee Show on SiriusXM and YouTube, the host of That's Hockey Talk, one of the multiple hosts of the pod, the Friday Bangers curator, the genius behind Meraldo's Mad Libs, world champion ball hockey player, Hall of Fame, dog dad to Big Walt, and he will never tell you any of this because he is the humblest man on earth, Nick Maraldo.
Boys, that was incredible, outstanding. I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that. You built me up way too high. That's tremendous work.
I just read the facts, my friend. You are the hockey guy at PMI. I mean,
by default, by being the only fan of hockey in the building, I've been dubbed the hockey guy. Yeah.
Hey, that is an expert in my books. Let's get right into it. Like, what is it that got you into hockey as a young Pittsburgh native?
I mean, Mario Lemieux, to be honest. Growing up, I was born in '86, so I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm an old man in a lot of guys' eyes nowadays, and Pittsburgh wasn't exactly always the hockey town it is now, but in my eyes growing up, you watch Mario Lemieux on TV, I just assumed everybody loved hockey because the stuff this guy was doing on the ice was just unbelievable. It was magical, it was sensational, it was the best thing going, and I fell in love with the Steelers, of course, but also the Penguins at a young age, and then they won 2 Stanley Cups in the early 90s, and I was hooked then. It was just a passion. I just started following along, loving the team. They had Yager, Francis, Kevin Stevens, all these guys, and all the talent, all the stars, exciting play every night. I was hooked. There was no getting away from it. And then as a Penguins fan, went through the tough times for a couple years, 3 or 4 years there in like my high school days where they absolutely stunk, worst team in the league, almost relocated. And then Lemieux comes back again, saves the team, becomes the owner, and it's like, here it is, my childhood hero saving us once again. So I owe it all to 66, man. The guy's a legend.
When you got that jersey hanging behind you every day, just remembering, right? Like that's
why I'm not a jersey guy, right? Like I don't love wearing jerseys. I was never a big hockey sweater, uni jersey, whatever you want to call it, guy. But there's like a handful of people that I'm cool with enough to rock their name on my back, and he's one of them just because he transcended the sport. He just went above and beyond in all aspects. So
yeah, I feel what you're saying with the jersey stuff. Like all my jerseys are fake people, so I got Gene Youngblood and the Hansons back there. So I mean that was like covered kind of my next question too, like asking who your favorite players were growing up. But I mean, you kind of hit the whole list there. And I know we read in other interviews you've done, you said your loyalty will always be with the black and gold rather than with a particular person.
Yeah. And well, oddly enough too, I also was like a huge, for whatever reason, Joe Sakic fan. I think it was because I was probably around 6th grade, I think, when the Avalanche came to Colorado, and it was like the new exciting thing. The team's moving. They got the new logo, rebranding and everything from Quebec. And Sakic was a guy who just like, and when I watched him play, I was like, oh, this guy's awesome. Like he doesn't take any shit, but he also like isn't like look at me kind of player. He wasn't super flashy, but had like the killer wrist shot. And he was just a great centerman, and always felt like he was like slightly underrated. And that always just kind of like resonated with me. It was like, okay, doesn't bitch, doesn't complain, quiet guy, just puts his head down, does what he needs to do. And I always kind of looked up to that. And so for me, when I was a kid, it was like Lemieux and Sakic were the guys. Obviously loved Yager and Francis and all the other guys on the Pens, but as if you can look to other guys as role models per se, I guess Joe Sakic was one of them.
Yeah, that is like one of the greatest like bygone eras of hockey. Just that, like mid-late 90s, early 2000s, just like the cream of the crop in terms of guys you could look up to.
Right? Those guys were on every night. You were watching them. To a national audience was getting to see those guys put on a show. The Stevie Eisermans, the great Colorado and Detroit rivalry, and it was just something that resonated with me at a young age. And I was like, man, I love this. I just love this shit. These guys banging each other into the boards every night, and all those playoff battles they had. It was like, again, the Penguins sucked me in. But I soon found there was a lot more hockey had to offer, and once I got entrenched in it all, I never got away from it.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. It does. It pulls you right in and it does not let you go. Shifting gears from your experience as a hockey fan to your experience in the U20 World Ball Hockey Championships in 2006. It's such a cool experience. I mean, it's a thing that Pat jokes about that Disco actually was like, we were talking about it. It's just like, it's been one of those running jokes that Pat will mention it every once in a while, but so it's a real thing. Like, it's a world gold medal. How did that all come about?
So, oddly enough, yeah, it is a real thing, and it's hard to believe. And I still think about it and laugh because it was such a cool experience. It was awesome. I had never been out of the country. It was except to Mexico, Canada. I'd never been over across the pond, I should say. I'd never been to Europe. So it was a really cool opportunity to go to Italy and play when I was 20 years old. I started playing ball hockey, is what most of the world knows it as. When I was younger, we just called it deck hockey. And there was a rink literally 5 minutes down the road from my parents' house. I was about 7, 8 years old when I first started playing. And growing up, we didn't have a ton of money, so ice hockey wasn't really an option. And this was just very expensive. And this was just a nice, easy thing in the community I got to do. Played it, had a great time doing it, and was pretty good at it naturally for whatever reason. And just kind of had fun with it throughout the years. Never really took it too seriously. It was just a fun thing to do. Big wall spark. I don't know if you can hear me. Just a fun little thing to do after school, right? And then as I got older, just realized hey, I'm not to my own horn, but pretty damn good at this. And wasn't flashy. I was a stay-at-home defenseman, kind of but I made all these all-star traveling teams, and it was cool because we didn't have, like I said, we grew up kind of poor. We didn't have a lot of money to take vacations, but we got to go to Boston and New Jersey. Not that New Jersey's a super destination and vacation spot, but Chicago and a couple other cities for these traveling tournaments. And then the natural progression for deck hockey is you kind of age out about 16. It's supposed to be a sport you play till you're 15 or 16. Then I found out there's a whole nother world beyond your local community. There's adult traveling tournaments where these guys basically just weekend warriors, where a handful of weekends out of the year you're driving to Philadelphia, you're driving up to Boston, and you're just with the boys, and you're playing 3 games on a Saturday, and if you're making it to the finals, you're playing 3 games on a Sunday. And one of the local Pittsburgh radio legends, Mark Madden, Double M, you guys have probably seen him on the show. He's the greatest heel the internet's ever seen. Huge wrestling. In my day coming up, I was about 16 years old, about to age out of the younger groups. He had actually been coaching deck hockey since the 80s. Okay. So he had been putting together these all-star teams, and this was right after he got done working for WCW. So it was awesome. Hey, we got this guy. He used to work for WCW. He's coaching the team. He's super eccentric, super hilarious. And that was everyone wanted to play for Mark's team because that's where all the good players were. So I was fortunate enough to be able to make Mark's team as a 16-year-old. It was a 16 to 20 age group, and played for him for a handful of years. And then, as fate would have it, he became the GM of the basically USA ball hockey. I forget what the official federation title was. There's 2 of them now, believe it or not, because they had a split because politics gets into everything. So being one of Mark's guys, I instantly had a good shot. There were 10 guys from our team that went basically out of the Pittsburgh areas. And then there were 10 guys from Boston, where deck hockey basically originated from, that went. And I think we had 1 kid from New Jersey, and we went overseas. We played Team Canada, which was a lot of junior ice hockey kids who were very good. We played Italy, which was a lot of Canadian kids who had Italian citizenship. Then we played Slovakia and the Czech Republic, and they were just straight out of those countries. No funny business with the citizenship, and they were all good players. And I'll tell you what, we were the smallest team there, but we were the fastest, which was a huge advantage. And we ended up playing a lot of close competitive games and ended up winning the whole thing in the end, which no American team had ever done up to that point. And to be honest, they haven't won since. I think they won a bronze a couple years after that, but no one else has medaled since then, especially not gold. So
it's a big deal.
It's something we all kind of joke about, but it is kind of cool to be one of the few to say they were able to do that and pull that off.
Yeah, right. You're just a part of the 2006 Miracle Not on Ice, right?
Yeah, we joked about that, and that's like how we kind of referred to it because like we went over there and we thought we had a good chance, but since no one had ever medaled before, we didn't think we were going to win. It was like, let's go over here, let's have a good time, play as hard as we can, and we'll see what happens. But it was a blast. We partied with the Canadian team afterwards. We all hung out at the bar and just had a good time and laughed about it because we found out that like all the Czech kids and the Slovak kids, when you played them, they would dive. Like you'd go into a corner with a guy in deck hockey, you're not allowed to check, but you can bump each other. You can get pretty physical, and you just put a shoulder rub against the guy, and they drop like they just got shot, and the refs would call it because they were also European, and it was just the style of play. So we kind of bonded over that, had a good time, had a good couple laughs, and kind of supported each other throughout that whole thing. It was really cool.
That's so cool, man. Like it's so funny that because it's always just been like that passing joke whenever you're watching any of Pat's stuff, and it's just you think about it, and I've read all about it, and it's there was so much to it that it's just like passing casual comment like I got a world gold medal.
Yeah, and it is. I still laugh about it. I still have the medal, and I still have the jersey, and I don't like hang them up or anything, but I got them and I kept them because it was just such a cool experience. Like, I was 20 years old, didn't come from a lot of money, didn't have a lot of opportunities. So it was my first real chance to get out there, spend a week in Italy, just with my teammates and our coach, and got to live life a little bit, and loved every second of it.
Do you have any like reunions with those guys? Like get together with that crew that got the gold medal with that team?
We've always talked about it, but we've never actually like done an official reunion or anything. But like a lot of the guys I still keep in touch with because I grew up playing with most of them. So like keep in touch on Twitter, text each other, whatnot. I don't see the Boston guys much. We keep in touch on social media a little bit, but like we would see each other at tournaments after that because we kept playing and ran into each other. And it was just always like that. Even when we were like battling in tournaments over here in the States, it was always like that thing. Like, yeah, you know, we did battle over there together. So it was always like an unspoken, like, all right, I'm not gonna carve this guy up with a stick or something. I'll let him off a little easy.
That's awesome.
That's so tight. Moving back to the Penguins, because obviously, again, they're the reason that we have the great Nick Meraldo hosting That's Hockey Talk. We're in an era now where guys won't typically end up staying with a team for their entirety of their careers. And if they do, it's more of a rarity than it used to be. With like the Sid and Gino era, like myself as a Chicago fan, you've had like a really recent like era of like pretty decent success. Do you think like Sid and Gino are going to be those type of anomalies now that like finished their career where they started in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, Sid for sure. And I could see Gino leaving, but I don't think it'll be because he wants to. I think it's a situation where Mario was able to do it right and people loved him for it. And I think he wants to allow those guys that opportunity too as well. Now everybody speculates Gino's got his wife and a young kid that live in Florida. They want him probably closer. He probably wants to be closer to them. So I think those things always come into play. But like I think Sid will be here for life. And I think Gino probably will. But it wouldn't shock me if he made a move at some point because I know his contract's up soon and they got to figure that out. And you know, it is still is a business. And like you guys, you see with the Blackhawks, like they had to retool and reload and saw a ton of turnover. But like Kane was able to stay there. Tay's still there. Key's still there. So like if you want those guys to stay, you find a way to make it happen. And I think when you get to like that height of elite talent, at least in the NHL, it's different in every other sport, I feel like, but at least in the NHL, like there is a certain loyalty that those players feel like to the organization and to the cities where they feel like it's their home. We like Ryan Getzlaf. We thought Ryan Getzlaf was going to leave at the trade deadline. What business does he have staying in Anaheim? The team stinks, but you know he doesn't. That's where he's been his whole career. His family's there. His roots are there. He wants to stay there. So it's good to see. It's good to see that still exists.
Yeah, exactly. And especially, again, like as, you know, a Chicago fan, like you look at teams where like everyone's got their guy. Like we have Patrick Kane, like you guys have Crosby and Gino, Disco in the Caps, they have Ovechkin. Like you want to see those guys like start and finish in the same spot because there is something special about that full career in one uniform.
Yeah, it's like Gretz. They say if Gretzky can be traded, anyone can be traded. That's the old adage. But at the same time, like imagine if he would have stayed in Edmonton the whole time. Now, granted, the NHL might not have seen the success and popularity it's seen over the past 20 or so years because of all he did for going to the game, for going to LA and expanding the market and everything. But like, I do think he would be, as great as he is, I think it probably knocks him just a little for bouncing around at the end of his career as much as he did.
Mm-hmm. And just as another, I don't want to like poke any, previous Pens player, but Marc-Andre Fleury obviously was a big part of Pittsburgh, and he was recently on Pat's show, and Pat put up a wager that if Marc-Andre Fleury can put one in the back of the net this year, he's going to donate to a charity of Mark's choice. Do you think he's going to come through on that?
Man, I honestly thought he would have already done it. We're running out of time here. I think we got 9, maybe 8, 10 games left in the regular season.
We're dialing down.
Yeah, and I'm sure Pat's a generous enough guy. He that offer extends through the playoffs, but those chances are going to be few and far between in the playoffs. But I was hoping, and I really did think he was going to get it done because just though Pat's always a big like manifest and speak things into existence, and it usually tends to happen. So when he made that, I was like, oh shit, because I think he offered up $100,000, and I was like, oh, like this is going to happen. Like,
well, and Mark said right away, he's like, you're going to have me shooting pucks every single night if that's on the table.
And he's already been doing that for years. That guy's been trying to score for as long as I can remember him being in the league. So I was like, yeah, it's going to happen. And
he deserves it too.
I would not be shocked if within the handful of games he has left, if he gets one.
Fingers crossed, man.
And back to the NHL talk. So predictions. What are your predictions for the Cup Finals, and what team has surprised you the most positively this season? And what team that like shocked you and how poorly they've done this season?
Shocked me. I would say maybe Calgary, because I thought they just have so many guys that are like just stud names and guys, they solid back end, and I guess they lose. And they bring in Markstrom from Vancouver, who had that great run with them. And I thought, like, okay, they got solidified their goaltending. They got the defense. They got Johnny Gaudreau. They got some studs up front. And they just and I thought being in that all-Canadian division would help a lot, but it just never seemed to click. And then as far as exceeding expectations, oh, boy, maybe Carolina. And maybe just because I was sleeping on them a little bit. But, man, they just, like, solid team from top to bottom. There's no real like weak point. Maybe you could say their goaltending, but now they've just kind of come out of nowhere with these guys and been on this run. They just feel like Brindamore just feels like the coach who's got them like playing such a team game that they're all supporting each other, great puck support and all that. And it's fun to watch all these other teams try and figure it out with the new division alignment, because you're used to like the Leafs now running away with the Canadian division. Like you're used to them running into trouble against the Bruins and maybe Tampa, and they haven't had to deal with that this season. So they've just been kind of running amok up there. And I think they can finally do some damage here in the playoffs, because let's face it, they're probably going to play Montreal in the first round, and it seems like that should be a cakewalk for them. So I would love to see if they can make a run. I feel like the people of Toronto would deserve that at least. And I love Austin Matthews being an American, succeeding up there in Canada. I love to taunt the Canadians because they haven't won a cup in 25.
Yeah, we stink. I get it. Well, I live in Calgary too, so like I've been hearing about how the Flames have been underperforming all year. It's a hilarious adventure being a non-Flames fan in Flames country, but it's exactly what you said. Like they picked up so many pieces, and it was all kind of like the brightest spots in Vancouver, and it's just been a crazy ride down here.
Yeah, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I mean, that's how hockey is. Sometimes you just stuffed up pieces don't fit, and then it just ends up being a dumpster fire. And here we are. They're firing coaches. They're bringing back Daryl Sutter out of the trash can, and they're doing what they can.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that Sutter
thing.
Who
do you got Cup final? Gun to your head, who do you think, if it's not the Pens?
I want to say out of the West, I want to say Vegas, and maybe it's just the homer in me pulling for Mark to get there. But I really love their team. Like I think Mark Stone is just a stud. He's just such a great two-way player. I love their defense. Of course, Shea Theodore's like one of the next great young defensemen in the league, and they pick up Pietrangelo in the offseason. And out of the East, obviously, I'm going to say the Penguins have to. That's my team. But I could also see, Tampa, what they did at the deadline was pretty impressive. And I mean, they're potentially going to get Kucherov back. So I'm not a big fan of picking teams to repeat, because I think it's incredibly hard. And I honestly didn't think the Penguins were going to be able to do it when they did in those back-to-back years. But it's hard to bet against Tampa when you see what they've done throughout the season. And if they get Kucherov back, it's just like, man, they're just so stacked.
It's going to reload, yeah. And with the Pens talk, I got to bring it up as the Caps guy. So we had a discussion on our podcast and our Instagram. Who hates each other more? Do Pens fans hate Philly fans more, or Philly, or Washington more? And as a Pens fan, where does your hatred lie in that rivalry aspect? Or is there another team that we don't know about?
Definitely Philly. And to be honest, the rivalries with other teams have grown tremendously in the past, 10, 15 years because of Crosby, because of Malkin, because of the success. But like, there's a pretty healthy rivalry with the Bruins because of what the Bruins did to the Penguins in 2013 when the Penguins loaded up with Iginla and Morrow and Doug Murray and got swept in that conference final. A lot of people think that was probably the most talented, greatest Penguins team throughout this whole run that they've had with Crosby and Malkin. But to go back to the original question, it's definitely Philly. It's just a natural rivalry between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia being on opposite sides of the state. And it's funny because, like, moving out here to Indiana and you try and talk sports and rivalries, whether it be the Colts or there's some people that are Blackhawks fans because there's naturally no hockey team here. They don't have that same, like, hostility towards other teams. There's no natural rival, whether it be in-state or right around in the area. It's just like when you're a Pittsburgh person growing up, you're taught to hate Philadelphia Flyers, you're taught to hate the Cleveland Browns. It's just the way it is. You just don't like each other. And so the Philly thing, obviously, also, I mean, they beat the Penguins' ass for years and years and years back in the day, back in like the 70s, 80s, early 90s. So it's just natural hostility that's been built up over years. The Capitals fans, I think it's more of a respectful rivalry in the sense of the Penguins dominated them for years in the playoffs, right? And the Caps finally break through when they go on their run and they get the cup. And so it's finally like it's not a bug versus a windshield anymore, right? So to speak. It's like, okay, you can kind of see them as almost peers now. Granted, we got 3 cups. You guys only got 1 in the most recent era. We 5 total. But regardless, trying to be nice here. But it's always been like, yeah, we don't like each other, maybe hate each other, but it's never the same hostility to me as Philly. Yeah, there's a lot more respect there because, the Flyers fans, guys haven't won shit since 75, so you don't want to hear them chirping. Nobody cares what they have to say. They just want blood, guts, violence, and, fuck them, to be honest.
And I just want to ask a general hockey question. As a Canadian guy, I have a ton of homer bias towards Patrick Kane, but there's been a ton of discussion about whether or not he's at the top of or in the mix for the best American-born player, because Hull was born in Canada, American, representative though, because Kane has that pretty decent opportunity to overtake Madonna in total goals scored. He's got the cups, he's got the Conn Smythe, he's got that weird goal against Philly that no one knew was in the net other than him. I was on the bus coming back from a lacrosse game in the middle of the summer, watching it on a Blackberry Curve. It was a big moment. But do you think that Patrick Kane has the potential to be, or is already, or is never going to be the greatest American-born player?
I personally consider him to be that already. Now, granted, I grew up and I watched a lot of those guys. I watched Chris Chelios. I watched Mike Modano. You watch Tony Amani, those guys that were in the World Cup and then got to play in the Olympics. And they were always very good, but they always felt like a step below the Canadians. It always felt like an A team and a B team when they played each other. Recently, in the matchups in the last couple Olympics, it's felt a lot closer, hasn't it? Like Zach Parise gets that game-time goal back in 2010 with the last couple seconds. I thought U.S. was legitimately going to win that game. Then Crosby rips our hearts out with a golden goal. But for me, he is right now, and I think Austin Matthews is the next one. I don't know if he can catch Kaner in terms of team success. I think he might be able to get around the ballpark in points. But yeah, Modano, love to watch him. But again, he always felt like and I'm sure someone will kill me for saying this, but he always felt like a B tier player to me in the league when you compare him to like the Gretzky, the Lemieux, obviously, but even like the Hall. Hall was great, but again, he's not American born, so I love that he played for USA and considered himself an American. But if you're talking in terms of born, it's definitely Kane for me.
See, that's perfect because that's what I was hoping you would say. But like, because I'm Canadian, so like I have no stake in that argument, and because I'm a Blackhawks fan, everyone's like, no, like you're just the Kane guy, so like no one can respect my opinion. So I'm glad that I have.
I mean, people love nostalgia too, right? So it's like, yeah, I saw Mike Madonna when I was 6 years old, and he was my idol, and it's like that's awesome and cool. But like, there's no doubt in my mind, Patrick Kane is more entertaining to watch, more skilled. Just, you know, he's a bigger draw. I think he's selling many more tickets than Mike Madonna ever would have, I think. So I think all that stuff kind of factors in. And then it's like, you know, like I said, he has all the awards. He doesn't lack credibility in that sense. So to me, it's Kane.
And back to your podcast, That's Hockey Talk. So what made you want to start that up? I mean, you're a big hockey guy. And how did you go about picking your co-host, being Gumpy, and having a Super Bowl champion, AQ Shipley, as your other co-host?
To me, man, it's something that's just fun to do, and that's kind of why we do it. Like, it doesn't make a ton of money, it doesn't get the most views, right? Like, Pat's show is super successful and does all the high numbers, and then we got Hammered Down, the gambling show. Subscribe to all these on YouTube, by the way, you'll love all of them. Hammered Down, the gambling show, does very well, gets a lot of numbers. And our show is just like the little fish in the pond, and that's fine with me because, you know, I don't love the spotlight. I just enjoy talking about hockey, and it's something fun for me to do. That's why you'll see, like, we obviously don't invest like the most time into it. Like we do it once a week. I'd like to do it more, but honestly, like with all the other stuff we got going on, it's just too hard to pull off. It's just too hard to do more than that. So in terms of getting a co-host, it was like, there's no one else in the office who even watches hockey enough to be able to talk about it. And I love to be able to bounce things off of people because I'm not the most opinionated person in the sense, like, a lot of stuff, to be honest, I just frankly don't care. Like, if there's a lot of these, like, it's got to be A or it's got to be B situations. I'm like, there's a lot of gray in the middle in a lot of these things. So I like having someone else in the room to bounce things off of. Gumpy, being Canadian, was a natural, obvious choice. And he watches enough hockey to know what's going on. And AQ is actually, for being a football player, a huge hockey fan and not just a Penguins fan. So that helps. Like, he definitely loves the Pens. We're both diehard Pens fans, but he watches other games too. So that was huge for us. And he's obviously been boys with Pat for a long time. They played together. I didn't know him that well until I moved out to Indy and got to know him a little bit better through Pat. It just seemed natural to do something together. And it's been a lot easier now, to be honest, now that he's done playing and he's getting into coaching. He has a little more time on his hands, so we can kind of make it work a little better. But like I said, like, you guys fired up this whole system here that we're on and we're chatting together on. You guys are like, I assume you use it. Like, we just use FaceTime because we're stooges and we don't know what the hell we're doing. We just want to get on microphones and talk and hopefully entertain people and try and get a few laughs because even if we're not the most informed, which we try to be, we try to know what's going on and react to everything. But even if we're not most informed, we're just, hey, let's just have a good time with it.
Yeah, and you got NRD. I mean, that's a huge pull. I love that, and like that's one of my favorite episodes of any podcast that's come out of that office.
He's good, man. He knows his shit.
Brilliant mind, brilliant hockey mind. Kind of in that same vein, like, you guys have come such a long way from recording in Pat's basement back in the day to having like a legitimate fantasy factory in Indianapolis. Like, do you guys have like fans coming by like all the time, like knocking on doors and like trying to meet the gang? And like, what kind of a transition has it been to going from like a homemade studio to having this like massively successful organization and multiple shows, and Pat showing up in the middle of the night with a backpack full of 50 grand with the FanDuel deal? Like, that's a crazy, like, one end of the spectrum to the other. What's that been like?
Yeah, to be honest, it's been super surreal, right? Because I spent like close to 10 years in a cube just doing the normal rat race business job. I was working in IT, had just finished a master's program, just got my master's, and thought I was just doing that for the next however many years of my life. And then, Pat retired. We talked about doing something when he retired, told me he was joining Barstool. I said, well, if you need any help with anything, just kind of toss it out there. Like, let me know. We talked about doing stuff, but it was never really a reality until that moment. And then he was like, yeah, would you want to move out here? I'm like, fuck, yeah, I guess. Shit. I thought I was going to be in Pittsburgh my whole life. I just felt like that was my story. That was my path, right? So I take the chance. I quit my job. I move out there with him. I'm living in an apartment with Diggs. I went from having my own place at 30 years old to living with one of my friends in like a 700 square foot apartment. So it felt like a huge step back in that sense. And it was cool at the time. We were with Barstool. That was like the rocket ship taking off. And it was just like awesome. It was a whole new world. I was on Twitter forever, but never like had a bunch of followers or anything. So then like starting to tweet and see people who wanted to actually engage and talk and follow along, that was all new and fun and exciting. But like, to be honest, it's gonna sound cheesy, but like the best part about it was like doing the shows, didn't have to answer to any like higher power, and making people laugh and kind of forget about the shit that they had going on. Because like you live on the internet long enough, you'll get all the stooges and assholes that want to pick you apart and be pricks about things and just tear you down. But like you always get a handful of people that are like, just they'll send you a DM and just tell you like how appreciative they are of what you do. And like, to me, I'm not really thinking much of it. I'm like, I'm just trying to be an asshole on a microphone really and get a pop out of somebody at some point. And so it kind of like, it felt good. That was like the rewarding thing. I was like, okay, this is cool. That started to happen more. I was like, oh, this is actually like affecting people and touching people. This is really cool. So as the show's grown and everything has gone on, and Pat's just a wild man. I'm fortunate enough that he allowed me to be part of his vision, and I'm trying to keep up with him and everything that he's got going on. We've always known he was going to be a superstar. Like from the day I met him, like this guy's too big for this town, right? Like he's gonna blow up. So it was like, that's the guy you want to bet on. So I've been doing that as long as I can remember, and he's been cashing those bets because like he's a machine, man. He keeps going, he keeps trucking, and he keeps entertaining. And like the FanDuel deal comes, and he hooks us up with this money, and that's like, for me, for a lot of people, that's like life-changing money. Like it really helped me out in a situation where it allowed me to like get out of debt and be comfortable, and it's been massive. And I can't say enough good things about Pat or everything he's done for not just me, for the entire office and a lot of the people in the community of Indianapolis, because it's a lot of people, a lot of guys like that in that position could just retire and just disappear and just kind of chill. You know, he made a lot of money. He could have just sailed off into the sunset and disappeared like he always jokes about doing. But he didn't. He stuck around and he helped a lot of people out in doing so. And it's been awesome to watch. And like you guys like reaching out to have an asshole like me on the podcast, like I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. This is awesome. Like I greatly appreciate that, because you know, you don't, in another life, I don't get these opportunities, right? If I stay in Pittsburgh and sit in the cube, I never get to do something like this. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that's a wild way to look at it too, right? Because like when Disco texted me and said like, yeah, like we got a chance to talk to Nick Meraldo, like I spent today fangirling and making sure I wasn't going to fuck this up, right? Like it was like a big deal. Like I watch you on TV in the morning and now I get to just like shoot the shit with you in the afternoon. Like that experience, like for us is super cool, but like, it's what you said with Pat, making a difference in so many people's lives. But like, it's like, I won't speak for Disco, but like for me too, like that's like a part of my life now. Like it's a part of my day. It's like when I'm driving to work, I'm listening to like Pat's live show, or like listening to you guys on the pod, or that's Hockey Talk. Like I feel like I'm like a part of that group. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm in the room with you guys a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think especially with like the pandemic and everything that happened, people needed that type of like interaction, and podcasts and YouTube and everything kind of helped bring people together in that aspect. So I like to think we're at least doing some good in that regard. But to your point, like I used to fangirl out over people. Like I got a chance to interview like Eddie Olczyk, and we got to do all these things on the show. Obviously on Pat's show, we talk to cool people every day. And like I learned through Pat though that like as cool as these people are and successful as these people are, they're still humans. And I think that's been a motto of his for a long time. And I think that's why he's like fearless in his questions and approach to a lot of things. And I've tried to adapt that a little bit. It's still hard because like anytime you get the chance to talk to someone like who's played in the league or has done these amazing things in life, it's a natural tendency to kind of like put them on a pedestal. But like when it comes down to it, like they're still going home and doing the same shit that we are. So that kind of helped me alleviate, because I'm like a naturally anxious person. So that helped me alleviate some of that stuff. And so like this, like when you guys asked me to come on, it's great. Like I admit, obviously I'd never listened to your show, unfortunately, but I did follow you guys on Twitter because I enjoyed the stuff you guys posted. Like I'm a big, like I'm trying to build up That's Hockey Talk on Twitter. And I use a lot of clips and information to try and do that. And so like I'm trying to follow anyone else who's doing the same thing. Like we're not newsbreakers, right? We're not getting the inside scoops. I consider us like secondary news sources where like those big people are going to sprinkle that information out, or they're going to put the gifs out, the videos out, and we're just trying to collect that and funnel it to everyone else who is too busy doing other stuff to worry about it. They just want to watch and laugh and be entertained. So, like I said, I follow you guys on Twitter because I enjoy it and I appreciate what you guys have put together. I'll start listening to this more often.
Well, we appreciate it for sure. And along with that, too, my friend Alec, who is an OG Heartland listener, he made a great point, and I totally agree with him. How are you and your group at PMI able to adapt to, like, you've been able to adapt to new personalities that come in and out of your team over the years through multiple shows without any real hiccups in the show and stayed true to itself and continue improving? Because you guys have multiple people going in and out, leaving the crew, going to different spots, and the show just gets better. And the squad gets better.
Yeah, I think it's like everyone just kind of follows Pat's lead in the sense that like we know there's a goal that he's trying to get to, and we're just trying to help him get there. At least that's the way I view it. I'm like, and I've always viewed it as like team mentality, and even go back to, I know it's just deck hockey, I know it's just ball hockey, but like I've always had that mindset of like, do it for the team, and everything else will take care of itself. Like, I've never wanted the attention or like tried to seek limelight or anything like that. Like, and sometimes even doing like hockey talk, it's like, I don't know if I should say this, or I don't want to do this, but like, I just watch Pat and how he does it. And I know I'm not going to be that good at the way he is at doing things, but you try and emulate certain things and just try and build. And the whole thing has been building. And when you have like a goal and a common purpose and everyone kind of buys into that, it's really not that hard. Like, everyone has sacrificed things to work there but in a positive way, right? Like we used to just go out and just get boozed up all the time and get banged up. And it's like, now we're at the age where it's like, okay, you can do it every once in a while, but honestly, the body can't even handle it that much anymore. So like you stop going out so much on the weekends, you stop being a drunken stooge, you kind of focus on what you're trying to do. You're trying to make a successful show, and everyone just kind of buys into that. And other people have other things that come along in life that that pull them away from that, or they have other things they need to take care of or handle, and you go your separate ways, and other people come in, and if those other people that come in buy in and want to make it work, it's easy. And so far we've been like very fortunate enough that that's been the case. It's more about like the other people coming in and just seeing like what goes into it, buying in, and everybody just tries to push forward.
And it's kind of the mentality you guys have there is like a hockey locker room, because you guys rag on each other and no one's too soft to not handle it. And I'm sure if there is someone steps over the line with a joke or whatever, that's handled behind closed doors. But it seems like your group is just like a hockey locker room where you could say whatever and then they'll give right back to you.
Oh yeah, you just got to bust balls, because otherwise it's just a great way to relieve tension, because like you do get stressed out sometimes. You're working on the internet, you got people criticizing you, and oh, did I do this the right way? Did I say this the right way? Did I post this right? Did I make this video look good this way? And like you have all these thoughts go through your head, but like it's just easy to just know you're doing it with your friends, and if you fuck something up, they'll make fun of you for it, and you can make fun of them back. And it's like there's no there's no stress in terms of you're gonna do something irreparable or you can't fix, or everyone's gonna hate you for something. And that comes from Pat, man. It's just good vibes. I'm always dubbed as the negative one, and that's fine. But like when it comes down to it, I always try and keep the same mindset as everyone else. Like, hey, we're doing something here. It's really cool. Let's just keep it going and try not to fuck that up.
Yeah, how you doing? Keep it moving.
Yeah, exactly.
So just quick reminder that we, as always, at the Morning Skate are brought to you by Can I Brand CBD, the most trusted and recognized CBD brand of the sports, fitness, and wellness household. Trusted by professionals and backed by sports scientists, these products blend high-quality CBD with vitamins and nutraceuticals. So remember to head over to Can I Brands and check it out, and use promo code TMS25 for 25% off your order. And kind of staying in that same vein again, Nick, with everything going on in that office. When was your first I can't believe it, like holy shit moment, like this is happening. Like obviously you said, like Pat said, like, hey, do you want to move to Indy? So like when was your first like real like that you can remember like holy shit moment, and like how often do you still continue to have them?
We get a lot of those, to be honest, man. There are a few that stand out. I sound like a douche saying that, but it's real. Like there are a few that stand out, and the one that always jumps out to me is the John Daly thing, where we got a chance to go to fucking Arkansas, a place I never thought I would end up in my life, and spend a weekend and slept at John Daly's house and drank beer with him in the backyard with him, Jake Owen, the Cadillac 3, and played around a golf with him. That to me was like, what the hell are we doing? Like, how does this happen just from talking into microphones and like having a good time? And it's like we told all the stories about it on the show, but it was all real. Like we didn't exaggerate any of it. We didn't try and punch it up. Like all the stuff that happened, and that was just life. And it's like Pat and I have always found ourselves like mostly through him just getting into these adventures, even when we were 18, 19, and we would go up to Canada and party and just like go to the casino and drink. And it's just like, it's surreal. Like I said, stuff like this, I don't know how he does it, seems to just float and gravitate towards him. And it's all very surreal. And then like throughout the past year, having Aaron Rodgers on every Tuesday was just out of this world. Being like AJ Hawk, a guy who my friends and I used to play as on Madden when we were in college, and then now getting to talk to him every day and like bust balls with him. And just when he comes out to visit, it's always hilarious. The stuff with the WWE was like childhood dreams come true. Standing in like the NXT ring, like never thought I'd get a chance to do any of that stuff, right? That's all like you watch it on TV. Oh, that'd be cool to do one day. Yeah, whatever. Smoke some more weed, blah, blah. And then a couple years later, like, oh shit, like I'm in the ring staring down like Bobby Fish and Adam Cole. Like I got no business being here. What the fuck am I doing? But it's surreal. And that's another thing too that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like you try not to take that stuff for granted. And I think that's what keeps motivating people to keep just, the positive vibes and keep everything going in the right direction, because you're getting the opportunity to really cool and outlandish things. And Pat always says it best, like, what a dumb life. And that's kind of like our running gag in the office that we all say to each other, like when something happens, because I don't think anyone ever imagined being able to do this stuff.
But I think that's why I think you guys resonate with so many people, right? Like you guys are one of the most successful live sports shows on YouTube day in, day out. I think it's because like it comes across so genuine, right? Like what a dumb life. Like it's just a bunch of dudes that like everyone can relate to. I mean, like everyone's seen Boston Connors.
I'm doing a podcast with these guys, The Morning Skate, and I was just telling them about what a dumb life we have.
What's up, Pat?
What's up, Pat?
I could skate though. That's the only issue. I'm not a morning skate, a night skate, or an evening skate. I'm a no fucking skate. I'm in bad spot on the ice, but love the sport of hockey, boys. Great to see.
Cannon of a slap shot on you though, Pat.
I got the hockey legs.
Little next door neighbor clap for him. Don't worry about it. I'm going bar down every single time I get a chance to really let one loose. Sick mitts, you know what I mean? I mean, just the lettuce too used to be something much more desirable than it is currently. But fucking hey, boys, huh?
Fucking hey, Pat. I love that.
A Capital shirt stinks.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it. Love you, buddy.
Hey, I love you too. I love Ovechkin as well. I like TJ Oshie. I like Big Sherrod. I mean, it is. I don't like pasta. The Bruins stink. But,
Bruins do stink. We're all on board with the Bruins being garbage.
All right. Good luck with that, boys. Nick, I just want to tell you, great job today. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
See ya.
Love that.
And that's what goes into what we were talking about earlier. Whatever happens throughout the day, at the end of the day, like you're all still boys. You're all still working towards the same thing. You're all having a good time.
Actually, that's kind of a perfect segue with what you were talking about before. That super cool moment just happened. I wanted to like specifically talk about the WWE NXT thing, because that whole process of Adam Cole coming on the show, that like bonus footage after, the live show had ended with, Adam Cole freaking out, and that whole Triple H coming on and offering Pat the match. And then it's Pat, AJ, Darius, and you were just absolutely most disgracefully disrespected by the WWE. Cropped out of the shots, no name, looking fresher than wet paint in there. And like, how cool is that? Like, again, it's one of the wild experiences that you just accidentally just like, this is what's happening now. And you never expect it. But what was it like just standing there watching and just staring that scumbag Adam Cole right in the eyes?
It was intense, man. And like I said, I think I said this in an Instagram post or something. I was fine with them cropping me out because I knew I had no business being there. And like when we got to do the actual match, I think Corey Graves had called me something like a world-class table tennis enthusiast or something. Like he just buried me on the air. And I loved that because it was like, okay, at least he acknowledged my existence this time instead of just acting like I was just fucking nobody and cropping me out of pictures. But that was the coolest shit in the world. And like never thought I'd get a chance to do that. Standing in the ring was absolutely out of this world. You're staring at these guys who work their whole lives to just beat the shit out of each other and entertain people. And I was like, okay, here I am. Like, again, don't fuck this up. Like, jump up on the ring. Don't look like an asshole. Don't slip because you don't want to be the reason they have to cut something out or change something. Or it's like, just, act as if. That's another thing we say a lot. Like, act as if you're supposed to be here. Like, I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm going to at least act as if I'm supposed to be there and pretend. And I was like, I've watched wrestling my whole life. I knew how to pretend to be a hard ass, but really cool that Pat asked me to do that. He's got 2 NFL players, and then the dumb Italian friend looking like an asshole. So I was more.
I'll be honest though, you looked like that dude that the Mafia brings in with the crowbar to take off kneecaps. Though, like you looked just as frightening as AJ and Darius and Pat did that night.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that was Pat's whole goal was like, hey, put this guy in a suit, make him look like a big, dumb Italian idiot. And then, he'll strike some fear into maybe at least one person. So I'm glad it worked.
And you don't want, and that's what you said, like, you don't want Triple H mad at you. That's the last person you want mad at you.
Man, that was that guy. You talked about looking into like Adam Cole's eyes. That was the guy.
Oh my God!
When he got in the ring and he looked at us, it was like, oh, like he turned it on for a second and he turned into like, turned into like Triple H for a second, and he gave you those eyes, and it was like, oh shit! Like,
oh my God,
this is a different league right here. When he got in the ring, I was like, oh fuck this.
All right, well, back to your hockey podcast. So obviously, your hockey. That's Hockey Talk is continuing to grow. Who would you be your white whale person to interview for That's Hockey Talk or have on the show?
For me, it'd be Lemieux, but he'd probably be a boring guest because he follows that line of like old hockey where, don't say anything outrageous, just, spit the cliches, thank everybody else and contribute your success to everybody else and just keep it moving. But I think if you could get him in a one-on-one situation, like I just love to have a one-on-one conversation with a guy, regardless of if people could hear it or not, because it'd be cool to pick his brain throughout all the shit he's been in. But trying to think of other guys, like I think Joe Sakic, again, another childhood hero, would be really cool. Love to get a chance to talk to like Patrick Kane or somebody who's done it at the highest level. I'm scrapping and clawing for guests as it is, to be honest. So I'm happy anyone gives us the time of day to talk to us. But we've had some cool people so far. Mike Johnson from TSN, for some reason, somehow, some way, answered my DM one day and came on, and he's always a blast to talk to. Aaron Ward, former 3-time Cup champ, he comes on and talks every once in a while. He's a good dude. So it's been fun, and I look forward to hopefully talking to some more people. But like I said, it's something we do for fun, so I don't stress over it too much, and I just try and find people that are willing to talk and willing to talk that are entertaining.
It's such a cool experience, man. Like just like even getting to hear, what's going on the other end of the mic, right? Like, cause obviously like Disco and I are fans, but just like, it's super awesome to be able to hear what's going on the, the other side of the camera and what's, behind the scenes really. And it honestly seems exactly how you've described it, right? Just like loose and just the boys hanging out and just putting together something beautiful that just happens to work all the time.
Yeah, it's a pretty good way to sum it up. Like, we try and be professional and be a real show, but sometimes you just can't help it. But other than just roll with what you got and what you're given. Like, we got a lot of nice equipment, and Pat spent a lot of money to make everything like look good and feel good and sound good. But when it comes down to it, it's really just us, 12, 13 guys in the office, like, just trying to make it work. And
that's awesome, man.
And that's pretty much why we do it. We got our own jobs. We just I got home as fast as I could. I'm a teacher, so I had to make sure I got home in time for this. So we're just doing this for fun, just because we love the game of hockey. So
this whole thing started for me. I literally bounced the DM over to the Morning Skate because they didn't have a Blackhawks writer, and I'm a ride or die Blackhawks fan. And I got a message back saying like, "Yeah, you're in." Like, that was it.
There you go, man. Sometimes you just got to shoot your shot, and like,
right place, right time.
There's no other way to know if you'll ever be successful or not. And I struggle with this too sometimes, but like, you just got to try it, right? Because like, if you think you're good at it and you think you'll at least entertain a handful of people, or if it's just fun to do, like, people ask us all the time, like, oh, how do you get started? How do you get started? Just do it. Just put up a camera or put up a microphone and just talk and put it out there, and you'll see if it's for you or not. Like, if you want to get better at it, you'll get better at it. And if not, then you can find something else. But
exactly,
it's that hard.
Yeah. Well, speaking of shooting your shot, Alex and I are both weekly contributors to Friday Bangers, and none of us have ever cracked the roster. So we're gonna have to talk to you after that.
It's tough, man. I don't let anything through. So you got to bring it.
Heat only, Nick.
Heaters only, man. You got to knock Boston Connor out of that chair if you're gonna do it.
Yeah, it's got to be good. Yeah, I mean, hey, keep sending them. Although I've heard some weird copyright podcast music things happening, so I don't know what's going on there. But for as long as we're able to, we're going to keep playing music on the show because people seem to enjoy it, and it's a good time to just let loose and
that's part of my Friday afternoon coming home from work.
Taking it into the weekend. Well, and you also have Meraldo's Mad Libs to fall back on if the copyrighted music ever does become an issue.
Yeah, and that's one thing where, like, when we first did it, I was like, man, what are we doing? Like, this is so dumb. But we did it, and people really enjoyed it. And I was like, all right, if this is what people want, let's keep doing it. And
they are like the most precious gift that just keeps on giving because you never expect them. And because you guys always say like, oh yeah, we're going to have a Mad Lib next time. And then 3.5 weeks later, we finally get one. And they're perfect every time because it's always just Zito shouting dicks out of the background. They're so much fun.
It was much fun as they sound like to you. It's even more fun to just sit in the room and spitball them because, like I said, every time we do them, like, this is so dumb. Like, I don't know how anyone's gonna laugh at this, and then we end up belly laughing the whole time we're doing them. So, yeah.
All right, well, Nick, again, thank you so much for joining us. I would really appreciate if you could tell our listeners where we can find all of your content, everything that you guys are a part of.
Yeah, man, it's easy. Go. Just type in the old Google machine, and you can just YouTube the Pat McAfee Show, or That's Hockey Talk, or Hammer Down, or Mr. Mansouri, Mark Madden doing the best wrestling show, period. And obviously, we're all on Twitter at Pat McAfee Show. Obviously, it's Pat's account, and if you dig in there long enough, and you'll be able to find each and every one of us doing our things. And at the Pod PMI on Twitter and Instagram. Obviously, the Pod's got their own YouTube channel now. Go ahead and subscribe to that. A lot of stuff to promote, but it's all good. You won't be disappointed, I promise. And I don't promise things often because I don't like to disappoint or underdeliver. But I think these are good things at a time where people need some escape and just something to just laugh at the bullshit.
Good shortcut. If you watch Pat's live show from 12 to 3 Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, there are links beneath for every single one of the shows that Nick just mentioned, and I am a fan of every single one. Good Nick, again, I cannot thank you enough for joining us.
Thanks for coming on.
This has been awesome, man. Amazing.
Hey, boys.
Shout out to Pat. Shout out to Pat for making a special appearance.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate that. You guys are awesome.